everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you guys a very ambitious October TBR because not only do I have quite the stack of physical books next to me, but I actually have quite a few ebooks that I want to get to, books that I don't own physical copies of. So October this year, I am just really in the mood to read horror and creepy novels, paranormal novels. I think I have some fantasy in here as well, but yeah, I just want all of the spooky vibes this month. So first I thought I would talk about the books that I don't physically own copies of. I definitely want to get to Bunny by Mona Awad. I don't quite know what this is about. This seemed like a book that I should go into pretty blind. I've just heard that it's kind of like Mean Girls meets dark academia meets creepy slash horror aspects. So I'm really excited to get to it. I have also heard that it's a book that's definitely not for everyone. It's very weird. So yeah, I'm just really interested to see what I think about it. Next, I really want to get to I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. This is a classic post-apocalyptic slash science fiction slash horror novel. Of course, this is the book that the popular movie starring Will Smith is based off of, but I always found it weird that the movie decided to make them zombies as opposed to in the book they're actually vampires. So apparently there was a virus that totally decimated the human population. Most people turned into vampires and maybe other people died from it. I'm not really sure. But I'm really excited about this book because I've heard that there is quite the plot twist at the end that I assume the movie doesn't have. It's been years since I've watched the movie, but yeah, I'm really excited for this classic horror novel. There are a couple of other horror novels that I'm interested in reading this month. I don't know if I'm going to quite be able to get to them, but if it does happen, that would be amazing. The first one is The Troop by Nick Cutter. I think this one is about this troop of Boy Scouts. I think they end up on some kind of island and there's like this bacteria or parasite or something that takes over all of the boys, I guess. And I think the virus or whatever it is makes them become like bloodthirsty monsters essentially. So it's definitely a horror novel. And then the other one that I might get to is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. I have not watched the Netflix movie for this yet, but the premise sounds really intriguing. It's essentially about this monster that if anyone makes eye contact with it, it makes them go crazy. And so there's like that iconic image of Sandra Bullock in the movie, you know, wearing the blindfold over her eyes so that she can't see the monster. And I think that's what a lot of people end up doing so that they don't end up going crazy. I have heard some polarizing views on the book and on Josh Malerman's books in general. It just sounds like a lot of people either love these books or hate them. So yeah, if I do get to this book, that would be awesome. Next up is The Unrequited by Saffron A. Kent. So this is kind of a dark and twisted romance, but it's probably more of a thriller based off of the synopsis. It's essentially about this girl, Layla, and she falls in love with one of her college professors, and I'm pretty sure he's married. So she has this unrequited love for him, and she turns into a stalker, and things end up going crazy. This sounds like the perfect kind of thriller for October, so I'm really excited about it. I bought this for my Kindle like months and months ago, so it definitely needs to happen this month. And then I quickly wanted to mention two YA books that I would love to read as well. The first one is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This would be a reread for me. I listened to the audiobook for this back in 2018, really enjoyed it, gave it 4 stars, but I can vaguely remember when I was listening to this audiobook, I was doing a lot of like driving and cleaning around the house and stuff, and I definitely recall missing some things towards the middle of the book, and for some reason I didn't think to just rewind and re-listen to it. So I definitely missed some things, and so I think it is pretty important for me to reread this, also because I just adored the production of the audiobook so much, because this is a YA thriller. where we've got two different POVs. We've got Sadie's POV as she's trying to find out what happened to her younger sister. I think her younger sister went missing. And then we've got this podcast, a true crime podcast. And the podcast is taking place in the present, where Sadie's POV is taking place in the past. And now Sadie has gone missing, and so the podcast is trying to find out what happened to both her and her younger sister. So like I said, I really enjoyed it the first time I read it, but I think upon reread I will love it even more. And then the other YA book that I would like to get to is The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. I am now a big Holly Black stan after reading the Cruel Prince series and just adoring it, and I do plan on reading some other of her fairy novels, but this is a novel all about vampires. I've heard some pretty kind of mixed reviews about this one. This one essentially is about the idea of vampires being quarantined into these cold towns, and humans can go into the cold towns, but they can't leave once they enter. And I've heard that the romance is also really good, and it's just a really solid paranormal romance. So let's get to my physical stack of books. The first one I would like to get to this month is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I know, how have I not read this book yet? This book has been out for quite a while, since 2015. Also, I'm just noticing that my copy, oh, that's like the map of the school that it takes place in. That is so cool. I am just now noticing that. So obviously I've never opened this book before. So this is essentially a satire on the Harry Potter series and the Chosen One trope. This is about Simon Snow, who is the Harry Potter character. And they go to this school called the Watford School of Magics. And then there's this guy, Baz, who ends up being Simon's roommate, and he's like this evil vampire. But it ends up being a love story between the two of them, and also so much more than that from what I can tell from the synopsis. Also, Carry On is like the fandom that the main character from Fangirl wrote fan fiction for, so this is all kind of connected. So yeah, I'm pumped to read this. Also, the sequel has been out, I think, over a year at this point, Wayward Son, and I know that she's also planning on writing a third novel. So yeah, also I adore this cover. The colors and the illustrations are just everything. Next up, I have 4 Rochelle Mead novels that I want to read because I am just so in the mood for all of the paranormal vampire romances. So the first 3 books I want to talk about are the last 3 books in the Bloodline series. So this past month in September, I read the first 3 books, which are Bloodlines, The Golden Lily, and The Indigo Spell. I really enjoyed all 3 of those books. For those of you guys that don't know, the Bloodline series is a spin-off to the Vampire Academy series that Rochelle Mead wrote. And these books are just like candy to me. I could just read them one after another, but I wanted to save some of them for October when it's vampire season, so to say. So this series is about Sydney Sage. She is an alchemist, and in this world, alchemists are humans, and their job is to protect other humans from finding out about vampires and the whole vampire world. And in this world, there are 3 different kinds of vampiric creatures. We've got the Moroi, which are like the good vampires. They also have magic. There's the Strigoi, which are undead vampires. They are evil. They have no souls. They're kind of like vampire zombies, kind of. And then we've got Dompiers, which are half Moroi and half human beings. So yeah, the last 3 books are The Fiery Heart, then we have Silver Shadows, and the final book of the series is The Ruby Circle. So like I said, I've been loving the first 3 books in the series so far. So the other Rochelle Mead novel that I really want to get to this month is Succubus Blues, which is book 1 in an adult paranormal series that is about Georgina Kincaid, who is a succubus. If you don't know what a succubus is, it says an alluring shape-shifting demon who seduces and pleasures mortal men. It says when it comes to jobs in hell, being a succubus seems pretty glamorous. A girl can be anything she wants, the wardrobe is killer, and mortal men will do anything just for a touch. Granted, they often pay with their souls, but why get technical? I think she ends up meeting and falling in love with this really sweet writer named Seth Mortensen, and then there's also some evil afoot. So that sounds really awesome. This is yet another series of Rochelle Mead's that has 6 books. She is like the queen of writing 6-book series now that I'm thinking about it. But this is definitely an adult series. I've heard awesome things about this first book, at least, from Bree from In Love and Words. I will link her YouTube channel up in the cards above. I talk about her all the time. She's one of my favorite romance booktubers ever. And this is probably one of her all-time favorite paranormal romance books. Next, we've got a horror novel. This is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. First of all, can we appreciate this cover together? I love the 80s VHS tape vibes. This is also the back cover. But I read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires back in July by Grady Hendrix. That's his most recent release. Absolutely loved that book. It's just a phenomenal horror slash thriller novel that definitely has a unique view of vampires. But this one was based around the like obsession with Satanism that happened in the 80s. I don't know too much about that subject. I'll have to like look it up on Wikipedia or something, but that's basically what this novel was based around. And it's about these high school sophomores named Abby and Gretchen, and they go skinny dipping one night, but something goes really wrong, and then after that Gretchen starts to act really differently. So I'm assuming she is the friend that ends up getting possessed by a demon, and I have heard awesome things about this book. Next up, we have Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahurin. This is book 2 in the Serpent and Dove, what is now a trilogy. I have talked about this book a lot recently on my channel, both in my most anticipated releases video and a book haul that I filmed that's not up on my channel yet. I think it's going to go up next week, if I'm not mistaken. This is a series all about Lou and Reed. It takes place in a France-like country. So Louise is a witch and Reed is a chasseur, which is a witch hunter, and they end up having to get married pretty early on in the book because of just some ridiculous situation that I can't even remember right now. I've heard really mixed things about this sequel because when it was expanded into a trilogy, I've already talked about this a lot, but I've just heard that this definitely has filler book syndrome and not a lot happens, so I'm kind of wary going into it, just being honest with you guys. But at the same time, I'm excited because I loved Serpent and Dove so much and I really enjoyed the characters and the world. I'm definitely gonna have to read a detailed synopsis though, because I read that book over a year ago, so I don't remember much of anything that happened in that first book. Next up, we have Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. So this is a book that came out a couple of years ago. It's part of a duology, and this combines the Civil War with zombies, and there are Black main characters, and all of that just sounds absolutely incredible. So I'm gonna read a little bit of what it says in the synopsis, just to give you a clear idea of what we have going on. So it says, Jane McKean was born 2 days before the dead began to walk the battlefields of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, derailing the war between the states and changing the nation forever. In this new America, safety for all depends on the work of a few, and laws like the Negro and Native Re-Education Act require certain children attend combat schools to learn to put down the dead. But there are also opportunities, and Jane is studying to become an attendant, trained in both weaponry and etiquette to protect the well-to-do. It's a chance for a better life for Negro girls like Jane. That sounds absolutely amazing. It also sounds like something that would actually happen if zombies started sprouting up during the Civil War. Like, it oddly sounds realistic. So yes, really pumped to get to this. Next up, we have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This sounds like the perfect book for October. It's a Gothic, maybe kind of romance, but it's definitely more of a horror novel. And I think this is based off of Jane Eyre. So essentially, this is about Naomi. It takes place in the 1950s in Mexico. She receives this really ominous letter from her cousin who just got married to an Englishman. And she's like, hey, can you come stay with us because I'm scared, essentially. Like, I don't know, there's like weird things going on in the house, I guess. So she goes to live with them. There's definitely a huge colonialism theme going on in this book. Her cousin's husband built this very English style mansion just in the middle of Mexico. And I'm sure there's other things going on plot-wise that lead to the colonialism theme and all of that. This is definitely a horror novel though. I've heard that there is some kind of gross body horror going on. Usually in books that doesn't really bother me, so I don't think in this case it will either. It's when I'm watching movies with like lots of blood and gore that I literally can't handle that. I will get nauseous. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading this. It has gotten a lot of positive reviews from booktubers that I really trust. So last but not least, I have two books that I'm not 100% positive if I'm going to be able to get to them this month, and that's totally fine if I have to delay them till November. But the first one is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. First of all, I love this cover so much. And Rebecca Soler, who is one of my favorite audiobook narrators of all time, she narrates the audiobook for this one. It says 17-year-old Alice Proserpine and her mother have spent most of Alice's life on the road, always a step ahead of the uncanny bad luck biting at their heels. But when Alex's grandmother, the reclusive author of a book of pitch dark fairy tales, dies alone on her estate, the Hazelwood, Alice learns how bad her luck can really get. Her mother is stolen away by a figure who claims to come from the cruel supernatural world where her grandmother's stories are set. Alice's only lead is the message her mother left behind: stay away from the Hazelwood. So that sounds really intriguing and really creepy, which is why I kind of wanted to read it in October, but again, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And then the other book that I have is A Reaper at the Gates by Saba Tahir. This is the third book in the Ember and the Ashes series. The fourth book, called A Sky Beyond the Storm, is coming out in December. So if I don't read it in October, I'll read it in November and still be caught up by the time the final book comes out. But this is a really interesting YA fantasy series. I'm not going to go too into the plot because I have talked about these books quite a bit on my channel recently. But I've really been enjoying the books so far. I've read the first two and it's a good solid series so far, but I've said this before, it's not anything that truly blows me away. But at the same time, the characters in the story are interesting. So I'm hoping that this book and the final book definitely step things up for me because I really want to love the series more than I already do. So with that being said, that's going to be it for this October TBR. As you can tell, like I said, this is a very ambitious TBR, but I have every faith in myself that I'll be able to get through all of these books because on any given month, I've been reading between like 18 to 23 books per month. So I definitely think it's possible. So I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to discuss any of the books that I brought up in this video. I would also love it if you left a like and or subscribed, and I thank you in advance if you do. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!